Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another week of the Health Wealth podcast. We've got another action-packed episode for you. I've got Barry with me, and we also have a special guest this week, Vaz, who's going to be sharing about his health story, a lot of the things he's learned along the way, what happened to him, and how he was able to improve his health. So, first off, Barry, it's good to see you again. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good to be back, Ryan. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to another episode. Uh, we've had some great discussions recently, and especially on the aspects of people's lifestyle choices. The financial situation, and how that applies to their health, and applying that to making the most out of that, in order to try and implement optimal living in the most cost-effective way. I think that was a really interesting topic, and also just the scientific aspect, the studies that we've discussed, and the results that have been found. So, yeah, it was great discussion, and great to have another guest to share his story. And I'm sure we've got a lot of alignment here, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great to have the discussions and delve deep into stuff, but it's great to hear the real life stories because
Yeah,
I feel they're the parts that hit home because, a lot of
storytelling.
times,
Yeah,
yeah, people who've been in, there's probably people listening who've been in the same situation as the person telling the story, and, they can see how they help themselves. So without further ado, Vaz, how are you? Welcome to the show, and how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thanks, Ryan, and thanks for having me. Big fan. It's nice to be here, and forward to sharing some stories and getting the discussion going. So yeah, a little bit about myself. My weight has probably fluctuated for the better part of like 20 years, but I've always been kind of at a steady weight. When I've been outside of those periods where I've put on weight, but when I have put on weight, it's actually just down to like laziness, not watching what I eat. The most recent time was probably 2021. We're probably in the middle of the second lockdown at that point, and I just thought, to hell with it. I'm going to eat what I like and drink what I like, and didn't really put too many limits on myself. That being said, I normally walk around 12 and a half, 13 stone. So just over 5'11". So it's a pretty healthy weight for my height. I managed to get up to around 16 stone. And the tipping point for me was when I actually ordered a pair of trousers that were like a 36-inch waist, and they didn't fit. And I was like, all right, hold on a second. What size am I here? And I think I was at like 39-inch waist or something, which is just ridiculous for someone my height. And it's not something that people around me really notice because it was a gradual process. You're putting on weight for people to kind of notice it. But when you look back at pictures, you're like, what on earth is going on there? So I got up to around 6 stone, and then I just decided to get back into my which would involve some daily exercise. If it's not daily, then it's every 2 days. But the battle was really won in the kitchen, and that I think that's the case for everyone. You see, perhaps when you're at the gym, you see a lot of really large people. They're on the stairmaster or the treadmill, and you think it's great that you're here, but you actually really don't need to be in the gym at this stage of your weight loss journey. You can actually do the heavy lifting. Yeah, so I basically just made it a routine to get into fasting again. But I didn't really put any limitations on what I was eating at that stage. I just thought I'll get back to fasting and see how it goes. And I also made an effort to, after a couple of weeks, to get back into some exercise. Now you're talking minimal exercise, half an hour a day of exercise or every second day. So that was really the kind of routine that kickstarted it. If you fast forward maybe 6 weeks from starting this, I'd gone from 16 stone down to 12, which is quite a rapid weight loss. But combined with the exercise and the fasting, that really made a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, as you said there, it is the battle is won in the kitchen with weight loss. You're absolutely right. And too many people have this idea in their head of a lot of it based on calories of just, eating as little as possible, banging out as many calories of exercise as they can, and think that that's gonna help them to drop weight. And as you say, it's not. It's all the key is in what you eat. I mean, I didn't lose a huge amount when I sort of sorted myself out and got in shape and looked into nutrition. I lost about 1.5 stone. Wasn't that much, but I actually, during the time I lost it, I was exercising less than I was before. But I was just eating the right foods, and the weight just dropped off, which seems to be what you found as well. And obviously the intermittent fasting helps too as well.
Yes, so as I was saying, it's like I just started to experiment. So I was like, okay, I've lost the weight now, so I maybe not fast some of the days, but I'll just watch what I eat. And I found that like my weight was staying the same. And then what I did was went back to fasting, but didn't put any limitations on what I was eating. So if I was breaking fast at say 6 p.m., I would break fast with something like scrambled eggs, so something really healthy. And an hour later have a big meal, and then maybe an hour in like chocolate and sugar and all the rest of it. And I found that my weight was staying the same. So I think if you're doing one of two things, you've got a really good chance of succeeding. Like intermittent fasting is obviously a great way to kind of reprogram your body. If you're not into the intermittent fasting, then I would probably start by having a later breakfast if you really want to have breakfast, but making sure it's not, granola and fruit. It's probably the worst thing you can have for breakfast. And you hear so many people so often say, "Oh, I had something really healthy this morning. I had some yogurt with some fruit," and you're like, "Oh, brilliant! You've just kick-started the Randall cycle first thing in the morning. Fantastic." But if you're eating something like, again, eggs in the morning, great. And if you're careful with what you eat, I don't really think you need to intermittent fast. But I dropped like 4 stone in the space of 6 weeks, which is quite an extreme way of doing it, but that was through intermittent fasting and watching what I was eating. So what I would say to people who are trying to start weight loss is really, if you're not going to do intermittent fasting, just start by eating the right things. Make sure it's a species appropriate diet that you're eating. So, high fat, high protein. Avoid, complex carbohydrates and refined sugars. Avoid seed oils. They're really the worst things you can do. If you really need to be naughty and you want to go and get a breakfast roll, by all means. But when the person behind the counter says, "Do you want butter in your roll?" just ask if it really is butter, because chances are it's margarine. And it's all these tiny little things that you can do just to make sure that you're giving yourself the best chance. So 4 stone in 6 weeks, again, very extreme. And where I'm at now is that I'm fasting probably, I would say, 5 or 6 days a week. So it's not every day. I'm not really putting a limitation on what I eat after I break fast with a nutrient dense meal. So if you are going to try intermittent fasting, I wouldn't, go and get a curry to break fast with, because, you're just undermining a lot of the good work that you've done. Just have something simple and easy to digest. Have some fish or eggs or beef. Wait an hour and a half, and then have something else. And again, you don't need to limit yourself, because you've already gone, an 18-hour window of not eating. So that's probably the best advice I could give someone who's looking to start. Forget about exercise right now. Just try and get all your ducks in a row in terms of your nutrition. Try and get some sort of order inside your body. And I think a lot of people, they're just holding weight and they're gaining weight because their body is just in disarray. I don't know how many times you've maybe caught the early morning train or the early morning bus going to work, and there's somebody opening like a can of Coke, first thing in the morning. It's just like, you've already dug a hole for yourself that you're just never going to climb out of. It doesn't matter if you've got a 1-hour HIIT class later that evening. There's just no way you're climbing out of that hole.
But, people don't realize that as soon as you're putting sugar in your body and you're spiking your insulin, your body's just storing fat. You're not going to be burning fat. There's no chance. It's locked away. And it's so many people don't understand, and so many people don't understand how much things sugar is like you said about people think they've had a healthy breakfast when they've had oats and fruit and whatever, and people say, oh no, I've cut out sugar, I've stopped eating chocolate. It's like, yeah, that's about 1% of the sugar is chocolate, the rest of it's in everything else. So yeah, it's educating people on where it is. So during those 6 weeks where you really, you lost that huge amount of weight, what kind of did your diet look like on those days? What exactly were you eating?
Yeah, so I would break fast with scrambled eggs. So just, butter in a pan, crack 3 or 4 eggs in there, scramble them, and I'll have that. And immediately when you have something like eggs, you feel satiated right away. So that was my kind of breaking fast, let's say 6 p.m., maybe even a little earlier, let's go 5 p.m. Then I would wait an hour and a half and have some dinner. Normally involves some kind of protein, so mainly beef. So, I mean, one of the simplest things you can make is get some mince from the butcher if you can, or the supermarket. Don't get me wrong; it's great to try and get grass finished or grass fed beef from an ethical butcher. That's the way we want to do things. But if it's from the supermarket, so be it. It's a little bit cheaper, and with the whole cost of living or cost of lockdown crisis, whatever you want to call it, everyone's obviously under some financial strain. So yeah, it's something as simple as beef. Just get some sea salt in there, butter in the pan again, and just make some burger patties. Really simple. Melt some cheese on top. Again, try and avoid ultra processed cheeses and just have something simple, like mozzarella, for example. Yeah, and whenever people ask me this, so you have like cheeseburgers for dinner, and I'm like, yeah, and they kind of go, oh, okay, and they almost kind of skew their face, and it's like, I thought telling you that having cheeseburgers would be good news, so that would be like a really basic quick dinner. Otherwise, I would cook some fish or a steak, again with butter, so I wouldn't be cooking in like any kind of oil. I would introduce some veg to it, like tender stem broccoli or asparagus, something like that. I certainly wouldn't be, trying to eat kale or spinach, things that are high in oxalates. I mean, you hear some people say, "Oh, I put some kale in my smoothie," and so on, and you're like, "Are you kidding me on?" Kale's so toxic that animals who can digest it walk past it in the wild. They don't even touch it. It's why you see massive bags of kale on the shelves in the supermarkets. It's not fit for them, and they've got 3 stomachs. So so make sure it's sensible.
And I mean, and kale as well. They market it as being high in vitamin K, don't they? But we need vitamin K2, and kale is vitamin K1, so it's not even that's not useful to us. So yeah, kale's literally pointless to us.
Yeah, essentially, and even if it does, let's say it did have K2, it's also the question of bioavailability. How well can your body really extract those nutrients? There's a lot of people that are on a plant-based diet who'll go onto a website like Chronometer, for example, and they'll punch in what it is of this vegetable. That means I'm getting K2. No, it's bioavailability as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of stuff in plants that stop it being absorbed, as you said, and people aren't aware of it. So it's that's a topic that we spoke on that a bit, and there's lots of stuff that you can really get into on that as well. Talk us through what you're eating now as well. I guess you're just kind of in a maintenance phase now. You're not looking to lose weight. So what does your eating look like now?
Yeah, so right now, it's actually pretty basic. Yeah, a lot of people laugh when I tell them I eat the same as my dog. Yeah, my dog eats, beef and eggs, and they kind of laugh. But yeah, usually, I mean, I eat eggs every single day. It's probably the first thing that I eat. And again, if you're not into intermittent fasting and you're having them in the morning, by all means, great. So scrambled egg, probably the first thing that I eat, or an omelette. And I'll go on to like a regular dinner an hour and a half after that. And the way I see it is that, I've gone 16 to 18 hours not eating. I've given my body some nutrients after a long fast. I've stayed hydrated throughout that 16 to 18 hour period by drinking water. I'll have black coffee in the day, which is fine. But yeah, an hour and a half after breaking fast, I'll just have a regular dinner. And again, it could be anything. It could be Like it could be a steak, it could be burgers, it could be fish, chicken. But I think the key to me is like I've learned to like stop when I'm full, and it's quite hard to get carried away. If you've fasted, you've eaten something that's nutrients, and you've maybe got a workout in, there's no reason that you can't have it. For those people that are not into intermittent fasting, what I would say is that if you're eating more regularly through the day, just like you said, Ryan, like try and avoid sugar as you can, and literally in most things, isn't it, these days? Yeah, I was saying that sugar is just found in a lot of things that you wouldn't expect, and I was reading recently that if you you go to McDonald's and order some fries, there's I think 12 ingredients in the fries. The salt has 3 ingredients, which is almost comical. One of them is sugar, and you kind of wonder why kids are addicted to Happy Meals when they're having fries that have got sugar in them. So what I would say is try and avoid sugar, and just make sure it's not in there, because chances are it is. Even if you're having like a pack of crisps, for example, there's loads of crisps that have sugar in them, which you wouldn't expect. It's just it's that perfect storm, isn't it? You've got some carbohydrates, potato, then throw in some sugar, and it's like no wonder people can't get enough. So, start by eliminating sugar. Or if you are going to have it, just make sure it's kind of like the last thing you eat. So if I have like scrambled eggs, for example, to breakfast, then I'll have some dinner. What I'll do is I'll then wait maybe an hour again, hour and a half, and then if I want some chocolate, I'll have some, but that will be the last thing that I eat. So that's it's quite a basic routine. A lot of people probably wonder, is there any fun in that? And I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, who doesn't like steak, right? Who doesn't like cheeseburgers? And you can mix it up. There's tons of things you can do. I don't know how many books there are out there that are on the carnivore diet, and this isn't even the carnivore diet. It's just a high protein, high fat intake. So
more
whatever.
More ketogenic than carnivore.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You're absolutely right that it's been shown that if you're having carbs, if you have them after eating your protein and fats, you get less of an insulin spike and less of a blood glucose spike as well. So as you say, even just the way you eat things, the order you eat things in can make a difference to your health. And like you say, to start with, you just want to get some small wins, and just a couple changes can start to give you those small wins, as I'm sure that you found with yours.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. It's you don't have to make drastic changes, but if you can make a series of small ones, then it is going to go in your favour. I think that once you're at the stage where let's say you're considerably overweight and you've made some real gains just by sorting out your diet, and then you're going to consider exercising regularly or semi-regularly. I don't think it has to be anything elaborate. My hard and fast rule is kind of once a day, just get out of breath or lift something heavy. It doesn't have to be fancy. It could be something like a 20-minute run, just do hill sprints. I don't know where you live, Ryan, but I'm sure there's a hill around most people.
Hills here.
yeah. So they're not hard to find. Just sprint up the hill 3-4 times and get out of breath. You don't need to spend £30 a PT session. You don't need a fancy gym. It could be something as simple as that. So I'd recommend once a day, just kind of getting out of breath and lifting something heavy. If you are going to have a day where it's a cheat day, let's say you don't want to do any fasting, you don't want to eat particularly healthy, I mean, it's absolutely fine, but I think as long as you get back on course fairly quickly, like the next day, just make sure you're well hydrated, maybe even do a little intermittent fast just to offset that cheat day. That works quite well as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, if you are going to have a cheat meal, if you exercise afterwards, that will bring your blood glucose down a lot quicker. Meaning you'll have less of a spike. You can kind of help your body to bring it back down. You'll have less of an insulin spike as well. So there's definitely ways around it. And as you say, with exercise, I think just being active every day is what people need to be. As you said, it doesn't have to be a huge workout, especially at the start. Just be active, whatever that is, whether that's, as you said, you could go for a long walk to start with, you could go for a run, you could lift some light weights at first, and then you can build it up. But just being active every day is good for your more for your health than, as you said, the weight loss is done in the kitchen. The exercise is more for your health and your joints and your, like, making your body work. It's not really for losing weight, but it is important for that.
And yeah,
And I
maintaining muscle.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
And building muscle. To be honest, the exercise, I try and use exercise more for gaining weight than for losing
yeah,
weight, because
yeah,
I'm eating
Yeah.
right. I know I'm not going to get fat because I'm eating right, but in order to add muscle,
yeah.
you've got to work your muscles. Even eating perfectly, you're not going to add muscle unless you're doing something. So that's I try and use exercise to add it.
Yeah, it just gives you the foundation, the diet and the nutrition, and then the exercise builds on top of that your muscle mass and your athleticism and your strength and your fitness and your endurance. So
It's a really good point, Ryan. There's exercise for losing weight and there's exercise for gaining weight. But I find myself, like, if I go long periods without exercise, I don't feel as good on a day-to-day basis. Like, my joints kind of don't feel as good. As soon as I go and do some deadlifts and just work on the posterior column, so just back workouts, I feel like my posture's so much better, and I even sleep better as well. So just making sure that you're doing semi-regular exercise is really important. And I tend to exercise when I'm still fasted. And a question that a lot of people ask me is that how do you have the energy for that? And what I always say is that, eating regularly, 3 meals a day, let's say, that's a modern way of living. That's something that society has almost imposed on us. 3 square meals a day. The other one is breakfast is the most important meal of the day. You don't really need to be eating that regularly. The body will just tap into its ancestral past. You will find energy. It's gluconeogenesis at the end of the day, but it's gluconeogenesis as a function of demand, not as a function of supply.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just to produce glucose. I mean, your body can just run off the fat and ketones. I think I'm pretty sure it's the average size male, not overweight, carries around, I think it's at least 50,000 calories of fat on their body at any one time, and that's someone in decent shape. So if you become a fat burner because you're not eating a high carb diet, like you say, you're not going to run out of energy. It's a lot of it is mental for people. They think they're going to run out of energy, and obviously if you are on carbs, you've not run out of energy, but you've got to switch from glucose to fat burning, and that's hard, and your body's got to force you to. I don't know if you've a guy I've listened to a lot recently, Tim Noakes. Do you know Tim Noakes?
I don't know.
So on the exercise side, he's South African. He's been around for years. Originally he was like the godfather of carb ups, like carb loading, and then eventually, sort of 10 or 12 years ago, he realized he was completely wrong. He actually got taken to court in South Africa because he changed his mind, and he had to go to court for years. He basically wiped the floor with them and proved all the science, but it's actually your brain which tells you to stop exercising. It's not your muscles are tired. Your brain tells you to stop exercising because the brain's getting low on glucose and it doesn't want to die. So your brain tells you to, but your muscles could keep going. So if you're fat burning and your brain's running mainly on ketones, then you're fine. But yeah, a lot of it is mental when people talk about the energy. But as I'm sure you did, I remember being like that. I used to eat high carb. I was into health and fitness. I thought I was fit. And if I went an hour or two without eating, I could feel it. And it's crazy. It's just down to what you eat. I'm so different now, and it's just because I changed what I ate. I didn't change anything else.
It's really interesting. I think it's really important what you said as well about the difference between sugar and ketones. But I mean, we're used to. I mean, for thousands of years, let's say we were hunting an animal. Let's say you expend massive amounts of energy tracking and hunting an animal. Often that wouldn't result in a successful hunt. So you would go hungry, then you would try again the next day. Maybe you go hungry again. So, from an ancestral point of view, we're used to finding energy on an empty stomach. And it's like, it's kind of modern society that's pushed this, you need to eat regularly onto us. But it's the same with anything, a surefire way of being bang average is to adopt any mainstream ideology or practice. So what I would say to people is that, what most people are doing, just to try and do the opposite and see what happens.
Absolutely. We often say on the podcast that literally it's kind of tongue in cheek, but it's not. But if you do the opposite of what governments and health organizations advise you to do, you'll be very healthy. If you just did the exact opposite, if you invented a diet that was just called do the opposite and you did it, you'd be quite healthy. It's funny and all, but also sad and slightly worrying because the majority of people take the advice and they end up the
Of
opposite,
course.
which
Yeah.
which
Of
is
course.
unhealthy. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it's funny, people will throw terms like conspiracy theorist around when you start to challenge this sort of thing. But I actually wear that as a badge of honor now. But it's not too hard to believe, is it, that you've got big pharma on one side and then you've got the food industry on the other, and they're working together. If it's going to make people sick, and big pharma will step in with the medicine to make you better, and round you go. And these are probably the two biggest industries in the world. You're talking multi-billion-pound industries. It's not so hard to believe that they might have some policies that are aligned. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's a perfect business model, really. It's absolutely perfect. As you say, they're locked in that cycle. They're addicted to the bad food, and it makes them ill, and they go to the doctor because that's the only thing they know, and they get prescribed drugs, and it just continues. Then they need drugs for their drugs, and then they're eating worse food, and it's they're just it's a
Yeah.
vicious cycle, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And you should always be skeptical of any doctor where the solution to your health problem is additive rather than subtractive. And how many times do people go to a GP and the GP says, no, stop doing that, stop eating that, and for heaven's sake, try and do some exercise. Are they allowed to say that now in the UK? In the cotton wool UK, I don't even know if GPs can even say that to you now. So it's always additive. It's never subtractive, is it?
Yeah, exactly. And it always, comes with side effects and makes it worse. And unfortunately, it plays into the fact of we're a lazy society. And we were speaking about this last week, how dangerous, convenience and comfort is. And that's part of the thing. You tell people, you just change your diet and lifestyle, you cure yourself of this. But the doctor's offering them a pill which could have some side effects, but it's one pill a day. They're going to take the pill because that's easy.
Very true.
Yeah, it's sad. It really is. It really is sad.
Yeah.
Just going back to just quickly about the mode of and the types of exercise. You're doing health sprints fast. And that's short term intense training right there. You're packing a lot into a short space of time, and you're doing yourself in. I think I do the health sprints every other Sunday. I should do it more, but it literally only takes 10 minutes, and you feel like you've exercised for 3 hours after it. You're literally done in, and that is a lot more beneficial for your endurance and your cardio and your immune system than just going through a leisure session of 45-minute exercises. That unfortunately I see far too many people doing. I go into the gym, and most people are not out of breath. They don't even look close to out of breath. You should be out of breath if you're doing it right. So and again, it is about being efficient with it. And this is also comes on to the course that I'm building and promoting. You can do a lot of really intense exercise using minimal equipment in a very short period of time. So that's what counts. It's what you're doing in it. It's not how long you're exercising for.
It's absolutely true, Barry. Yeah, absolutely true. And things like health sprints, they will get your heart rate up really quick. It is really, really intense. And I think you want to get your heart rate up as high as possible when you're doing cardio. Some people will go for a long run and get there after an hour. If you can get there in 10 minutes, the way I see it is, what's the difference? If you're not training for some sort of endurance event, there's no reason for you to be running miles and miles and putting stress on your joints.
And having your body store the energy as well, so the fat, so that you're not burning it when you're running over a long distance. That's normally what happens.
Yeah.
I think that there's been research done that now don't quote me on this because I could be wrong on the times, but either 5 or 10 minutes of sprinting is better than like an hour of cardio, like long running, better for you in terms of your cardiovascular health, even weight loss, if that's what you're trying to do and everything. I agree. High intensity for a short period of time is the best way to exercise. I do all mine at home. And I don't exercise massive amounts, to be honest, but I exercise at home. But I used to, years ago, I'd go to the gym, and you see guys, I'm sure you guys are the same. We've been to gyms. You see guys who spend like 3 hours a day in there, just like taking their time and doing a workout and doing another. And I really wonder how much benefit they're actually getting from that. I don't think there's much. I think it's just a hobby. They enjoy being there. I doubt they're getting much physical benefit from it.
No.
It's very true indeed. And when you see these young guys at the gym these days, it's always, they're looking at their phone in between sets. There's these really, really long rest periods between sets, and it's like, just a leisurely workout. Don't get me wrong, if you're 22, you could probably get away with that, but when you start getting a little bit older, I think you do need to up the intensity. But sitting in the gym for an hour and a half, doing really basic exercises on machines, it's just vanity training at the end of the day. I don't really think it's adding much. If you're going to lift weights, go and do deadlifts, do something that's your big compound exercises that's going to have real benefits. And doing something like a clean and press, for example, it's going to get your heart rate right up as well, so you're getting that heavy lifting and your heart rate up. So just try and be smart, especially if you're limited for time, and we all are these days. Just be smart about how you're exercising. Make sure it's intense. You only need 30 minutes. Just make sure it's as intense as possible. But even taking exercise out of the equation for people who are starting from stage one, they have some weight to lose. Just forget about the gym. Get into the kitchen, make sure that's sorted out, and you'd be amazed how easy it is to actually start fasting. Because let's say you go to bed at midnight, let's say, you wake up in the morning, everyone hits the snooze button, don't they, in the morning? So we're all running late for work, let's face it. So skip breakfast, there you go, that's one meal skipped. Have some black coffee, make sure you're hydrated, and just push lunch a little bit later into the day. So if it's 12 o'clock, try 1 o'clock, then try 2 o'clock, then try 3 o'clock. So before you know it, let's say you go to bed at midnight, by the time 3 o'clock rolls around, you're already 15 hours into a fast. It's not that difficult to get up to that 16, 17, 18 hour mark.
Yeah, I agree. And you can, start it in stages if you're not used to it. I kind of eased into everything in stages as I just delved deeper and deeper into nutrition. And so I dropped breakfast. And for a while I was eating lunch and dinner still. And then as I looked into it more, then I dropped lunch. So, you could just start by skipping breakfast, as you say, lunch is normal. And then you could skip that. And I think a really important thing to help with intermittent fasting is to eat the right foods. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you can eat better foods, it's a lot easier to go a long period without eating when you're eating nutritious food. Where if you're just eating, basically empty calories of sugar and empty carbs, then it's going to be quite hard it's going to need a lot more discipline to go that longer period. So I think if you're eating the right foods, it makes it a lot easier. And like you say, it's not that hard. We've spoke about this a lot, and I was one of those people. I refused. Didn't matter what it was. If we were going to the airport, I refused to leave the house in the morning without eating breakfast. I couldn't handle it. I refused to, and now I can go a whole day without eating. And it's another thing that's mental. It's really not that hard. And as you say, start small. Remove breakfast, start eating better foods, then remove lunch, and suddenly you're there. You're fasting for nearly a whole day at a time and eating the right foods, and you're away.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes it's difficult for people to start. There's just so much disinformation out there, isn't there? I feel like those of us that do fast, we're still kind of in a niche, if that makes sense. We're still kind of like, because again, you've had the food industry and all this mainstream information for decades now, just saying you need to eat 3 times a day. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And it's all nonsense, really, but people are continuously fed with so much disinformation, and there's always like the next diet or the next fad, isn't there, as well, to distract people. And like that's the reason they call it a diet, is because something's got to give. It's not a natural way of eating. That's why it's called a diet. And there's so many of them because they don't work. If they worked, why are there hundreds of them?
Yeah, spot on, and that's the thing. It's a diet. It's a plan. what it should be is a change in habit and an education on what it is you should be eating, and then the inflammatory foods to remove completely, so that you just know what to do. You don't have to track your calories and count your calories and all of this stuff. You know, if you're actually really eating optimally and you're doing it within a smaller time frame, there's no need to do all of that. That's just it becomes a pointless exercise, and it doesn't guarantee, as we've spoke about many times in the podcast, it doesn't guarantee or true optimal health either, because you're just following a very stringent plan. But you come off that plan, you haven't built up any credit in your body, and you'll end up putting that weight on a lot quicker. Whereas if you can educate yourself on how to truly eat optimally and do it within, even if it's an 8-hour an eating window, you know, that's 16 hours. That's not very difficult at all. But at least you're confining it, and you're not constantly in a fed state, and you're not having to, when you eat truly optimally and you're getting the right amount of protein and healthy fats in, then you don't need to calorie count. It becomes pointless. So a lot of this influence now is that encourages people to do that. It works but only on a short-term basis. It's not a long-term solution.
You know, you're absolutely right, Barry, and it's going back to the whole thing. There's like this pressure from the mainstream, and you know, people have the innate ability to kind of, you know, to know if something's not quite right, but people will still go along with it. Like, for example, people throughout, let's go back to lockdown and COVID, for example, people were taking healthcare advice from individuals whose own personal health was clearly ailing. That didn't raise alarm bells for people. I'm taking healthcare advice from someone that weighs 240 pounds. I don't know if you've seen the health ministers for Scotland and the UK and Canada and America, but they're probably the last people in the world that you would take healthcare advice from.
Absolutely.
And it's like going to a dentist who's got dentures in. That'd probably raise alarm bells, wouldn't it? You know, you're going to a dentist who doesn't have any teeth themselves. And, you know, it's not so hard, is it, to take healthcare advice from people who are actually displaying the level of health that you want to aspire to have, you know? So maybe the two things I would say to people who are maybe stuck in a rut.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. In anything in life, you shouldn't take advice from people that aren't where you want to be. So as you say, if someone's health is poor, don't take health advice from them. Take health advice from people who are healthy. You know, take money advice from people who are rich. Don't take money advice from poor people, and don't take health advice from unhealthy people. It's the same thing. And as you say, we're just really kind of brainwashed into just accepting it from anyone who's in a position of authority or who's a doctor. You know, there's I post videos all the time, and I can't remember what, it was one I posted on, and someone commented on it, you know, disagreeing with me. So I replied a bit, and they said something about, you know, you think you know more than a doctor or something like that. And I said, well, yeah, I said, to be honest, on nutrition, yes, I do. I said, you know, what doctors don't reverse health conditions. You know, that they don't. They make them work. They cover up symptoms and mostly make it worse. I was like, well, you know, we're here reversing health conditions. So I would say, yeah, I do know more. And but people just think, oh, a doctor knows everything. But you know, doctors themselves will tell you the amount of nutritional training they get in their training is absolutely minimal. And to be honest, even if they got a lot, it wouldn't matter, because they would be trained the same as the mainstream information is, which is, you know, terrible. I had people say to me, oh, you know, are you a qualified dietitian? I say, well, no, because I'm not brainwashed. I wouldn't want to be a qualified dietitian, because what are they going to teach me? They're going to teach me everything that I know isn't true. So what's the point? But it makes it really hard for people, because, you know, I thought I was knowledgeable on health. I thought I was reasonably knowledgeable on food, and I thought I was living pretty healthy. And eventually I realized I wasn't, and I had to be open to that. We talk a lot on the podcast about being open-minded and, you know, being a critical thinker. And I had to accept the possibility that I was wrong. And so I looked into it, you know, found I was wrong, and kept looking and looking until I, you know, found the truth out. But a lot of people aren't really willing to open their mind to anything. It makes it hard.
Absolutely, Ryan. And it's you know, GPs for the most part, they tend to be kind of order takers these days, don't they? It's kind of like, you know, little drop down menu, click, let's try solution one. or we tried solution one, so let's go to option two, and so on. There's not, I don't think there's a lot of, like you said, critical thinking when it comes to that side of things, and it's quite annoying because people have got their faith in this system. They put their faith in that, the degree that this person has, but I really think that a lot of ailments and comorbidities can be addressed just by your diet alone. We've seen people reverse a number of conditions just by adopting a species appropriate diet, and changing that side of things. So before you go down the route of trying a medicine or therapy, start with the diet, because chances are that might bring you a long way along.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably will.
Yeah. From what I've found so far, looking into stuff and, from working with people and hearing people's stories, I'm not convinced I've yet seen any health condition that's not massively improved or completely reversed by just diet and lifestyle. I don't think there's anything I've come across that's not. And as you said, with your, obviously, more weight loss you were doing, but it wasn't actually that hard. People think, changing diet and lifestyle sounds like hard work. It's not. It's really not that much hard work. Unfortunately, people need a why to make them do it. And unfortunately, normally they only get that why once they have a serious health condition, and it's very far down the line. People don't tend to value their health at all until their health is gone.
Yeah, totally true. And what we're seeing now is like, I don't want to go on a rant about things like veganism, but as tempting as it is, but you've got parents now that are raising their children vegan, and it's like, well, what kind of start are you giving them in life? It's bad enough that let's say a generation before us or two generations before us, they were raised on what would have been a much more fit diet for humans, back 50s, 60s, 70s. If you were raised on the right diet and then you end up being grossly overweight, okay, that's bad, but it must be even worse for kids that are actually raised with the wrong diet. They've got all the work still ahead of them, don't they?
Yeah, I think it's terrible. It is, because the thing with veganism, there's some people might go vegan to try and help their health, and if you were really strict and really careful on a vegan diet, you could maybe do okay for a little while. But it's deficient. We know it's deficient in nutrients. You can't get everything you need. And even for an adult trying really hard and everything, they could scrape by. Long term, it's probably going to catch up with them. For a kid, that's the most important part in your life, where you need the right nutrition as a kid when you're growing. And for them to be missing out on it, it's really sad, and it's cruel. And you see stories of kids with malnutrition, all these issues from vegan. But there was a really sad story a while back of there's a couple. They were really extreme, and they had and their little baby died of like malnutrition from it. And it's it's horrible. And you've got to give them the right nutrition. And the worst thing I find about veganism is, like I say, if someone goes vegan to try and improve their health, at least they're trying to improve their health. But the majority of people who go vegan, it's literally just for like moral reasons or because it's popular. It's not even for a good reason. And then they're forcing that on their kids.
Yes.
For sure. And they want to throw up that flag of virtue a lot of the time, don't they? I'm doing it for the animals, but like veganism is an ideology that's not just nutritionally bankrupt, but it's morally and environmentally bankrupt as well. Yeah. Just starting on nutrition alone, you're getting all those endocrine disruptors and plant defense chemicals and anti-nutrients, aflatoxins, indigestible fiber from all the plants that you're eating. Number one, you're not getting the things that you need from eating something like beef. So right off the bat, you're doing badly from a nutritional standpoint. Then there's the whole environmental issue. Clearing large swaths of land, to plant, single crop areas. And then there's the whole, morality factor as well. Vegans that say they do it for the animals are completely blind to the fact that they are probably killing more animals than carnivores. Clearing all that land, ground nesting birds, small mammals, etc., decimated. Then you're planting these seeds, and then you're spraying them with pesticides. You're killing billions of insects along the way. So it's absolute carnage, and they think that I'm saving the fluffy farm animals, but they don't really care about all the other billions of animals that they're killing. And just bees alone, I mean, billions of bees are being wiped out because they need to have almond milk in their skinny lattes. It's absolutely outrageous, and you can test the theory a number of ways. Why is veganism wrong? Well, nutritionally, we've already proven that it's completely devoid of key nutrients. It's packed with plant defense chemicals. Let's go back to before the agricultural revolution, which was what, 8,000 years ago, 9,000 years ago. Before that, we weren't sowing seeds, so we've never been in the wild and then stumbled across a nut bush, or a tree with all these ripe bananas on it. It just didn't happen back then. We hunted animals. I've yet to see a cave painting depicting farming.
Yeah.
And I've issued this challenge to vegans on numerous occasions. Is like, do you have a forest near your house? Yes, okay. What I'd like you to do is walk into that forest and start consuming the vegetation, and see how long you last. You're going to be dead within 48 hours from some kind of poisoning. So to think that this is how we were eating before the agricultural revolution is just insane. Then there's also there's the patch test. It's toddler in a high chair. You can put some broccoli in front of the toddler. They're going to virtually gag at the sight of it. Give them like a chicken bone or something to play with, or a chicken leg or something. They just can't get enough. And that child or that toddler has no concept of life or death, or the fact that an animal's given their life so they could eat that. They've got no concept of that. They just know what's inherently good for them and what isn't. And this is just something they can't wrap their heads around,
Yeah, absolutely. You summed it up right there with the ideology. It's like veganism is like a religion or a cult. It's not about, health and nutrition. Like, people, they try and argue with, people who are on the carnivore side or whatever, but people who are on the carnivore side are there for health. They are there because it has helped their health. The amount of health stories there are is crazy. The amount of ex-vegans that have had to go carnivore and have had amazing turnarounds in their health is crazy. They're there for health and because it works. Vegans are there because of the ideas in their head, and they can't back them up, most of them. As you said, an environmental one, talking about, they bring up the methane from cows. The grass that cows eat, if they didn't eat it, when it died and rotted, it would release the same amount of methane as a cow releases from its body. So there's no difference to the atmosphere and to the planet, and it's part of the natural cycle. And as you said about all the farmland and stuff, and they try and pretend there's no animals being killed there. And when you say about the amount of the planet being destroyed for crops, they say, oh well, a large percentage of that is for animals. But what they don't realize is that we are more than happy for our animals to just feed on grass. We don't want those crops grown from, for the animal-based thing, they will feed on grass. They're part of the natural cycle. We don't need these grains grown for them. That's done by them. I think it's 12% of the available land on the earth is being used just for seed oils, like 12% or something like that. And it will be destroyed, like you said, that they're destroying the soil. So there's no argument for the vegan side that stands up. Like you say, they're killing more animals doing it than we are. A cow will feed a family for a year. That's one animal. How many are they killing to get a thing of broccoli? They're killing thousands. So
yeah.
As you said, nutritionally doesn't stand up, morally doesn't stand up, environmentally doesn't stand up. There's no reason to be it. As I say, if someone goes into veganism for their health, well done for them for trying to sort out their health, but they're probably going the wrong way.
Yeah.
But hopefully eventually they'll come the right way. But that's a valid reason. If you go vegan for your health, fair enough, try and sort your health out. But 90% of them, it's nothing to do with health. As you said, it's the ideology, and none of it stands up.
That's it. And, don't get me wrong, in the short term, it could give you some relief from the standard American diet. Don't get me wrong, but it's by no means a viable option in the mid to long term. Almost all vegans end up not being vegans. The ones that didn't revert back are dead. So no one's a lifelong vegan.
Yeah.
And it's for good reason. And by the way, on the standard American diet, the healthiest thing in the burger still is the meat.
That's true. That's it. And as you said, it is a step up from the standard American diet. So lots of people will go vegan and will see improvement in their health. Absolutely. But that's because of all the rubbish they've cut out. It's not because they're eating the right diet for humans. It's just they've cut out the rubbish and it's improved their health. But, you know, things are going to start to catch up with them.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, they can, it's a strange thing as well. Most vegans want their food to look like meat. I don't know if you've noticed that, which is really odd. It's like, okay, so you're absolutely horrified by the fact that an animal's had to go to an abattoir, yet, you know, you want your Beyond Meat, you know, bacon to look like bacon. It's really weird. And they all have cats as well. They all have obligate hyper carnivores as pets. It's just, yeah, it's really strange.
Yeah, and they know instinctively that is the right type of food that humans should be eating and consuming, which is why they wanted to assume the meat form, you know, because they know instinctively, genetically, in terms of the evolutionary as well, that is the right form for consuming food for humans.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to make something. They're trying to basically fit the square into a round hole, and it's just not happening. It's ludicrous. It's a scam, and you know, the other thing is the fact that thousands of animals are being killed so that fertilizer can be produced in order to grow the vegetables that they eat, but they don't care about that. You know, so when they bring up the animal argument, they've got no argument there at all. That's been proven. It's a height of hypocrisy, in my opinion. So
it's very true, Barry. And you know, they always seem to be into the kind of, you know, the climate as well. The veganism and climate change seem to go hand in hand. Meanwhile, all their avocados are being piled onto jets so they can be flown across from South America. And just on that point about, you know, them wanting their food to look like meat, I don't know if you saw, but there was a vegan butcher that opened in London. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's complete with the counter, and then you've got everything that looks like real meat behind the counter, and you have the guy dressed as the butcher, but none of it's meat. I think it's actually closed down now, but there's plenty of images on Google if you want to grab it for the pod. So it's just ludicrous.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that's closed down. Yeah. It's, as you say, I think it's a natural thing that, like you say, they know that's what we should naturally be eating. I don't know about you. I've personally, and I've never come across anyone else who's animal based who has ever wanted a meat version of broccoli or carrots or anything. You know, there's no need. Like we that's our food and we eat it. The fact that they want to replicate it, as you say, is because, you know, they know that that's what they should be eating. So they're trying to create their own version of it. And that's just a giveaway. You know, I've said lots of time, you know, that, you know, posted memes about it, like, you know, why do vegans always want to make their food look like meat? And they're saying, oh, well, why not make a burger out of plant-based if it's better? It's not better. It's got about 100 ingredients. A burger's just a burger. It's and that actually brings me back to a point I was going to make earlier when we were talking about just eating healthier and getting rid of sugar, and, you know, how hard it is. That a basic thing that people can start with is just don't eat any foods that have got ingredient. Like if you can eat single ingredient foods as much as possible, that's basically your only way to avoid sugar. Pretty much every food that has an ingredients list, I can guarantee you, number 2 or number 3 on the ingredient list will be some form of sugar. Pretty much everything. So, you know, you can just start by having single ingredient foods, or, you know, 1-2 ingredients, and that just make it real simple. I think simple is best.
100%. And that's really kind of what informed my kind of diet when I don't like to say diet, but my eating habits when I was losing weight. It was like really basic stuff, you know. I'd be hard pressed to even give you kind of one recipe that I used, because I didn't. It was literally just, there's a bit of fish, I'll have that. In terms of like meat, it was always like beef, steak, burgers, that kind of thing. I'd always have eggs every single day. I eat about 3 to 4 eggs a day. In terms of cheese, it was always healthy cheese, or reasonably healthy cheese. So things like mozzarella, feta, halloumi, occasionally like goat's cheese. So nothing really super refined. But, you know, if you were to compile the number of ingredients that I would have in a day, I don't think you would get into double digits. And like you said, you've got these foods out there that have literally hundreds of ingredients in them, and mainly the main culprit is sugar. But the sugar industry did a really good job of diverting attention away from themselves. Back in I think it was maybe 50s, 60s, by demonizing salt. Too much salt is bad for you. Yeah, okay, if you're eating processed, synthetic salt, yeah, I would stay away from that. But sea salt, I really don't see any issue with, as long as you're well hydrated. When I cook a steak, there's almost as much salt on the plate as there is steak. I really don't limit it, so I seem to be fine. So,
especially pink Himalayan salt as well, which is very beneficial nutrition wise.
Yeah, salt is important to us. It's really important, beneficial. And like you say, especially when you start eating better, you crave the salt. I'm the same, salt and everything, and we need it. And the only issue with salt, they try and say salt causes high blood pressure and things like that. Salt retention can lead to high blood pressure, but the only reason we retain salt is when we're eating a high carb diet. When you're not eating a high carb diet, you don't retain the salt. So it doesn't matter how much salt you eat. And they're the things that they leave out, of course. That's why when you first go, a lot of people get keto flu when they first go, low carb. And what that is just low electrolytes, because you're not used to your body dumping the salt. And as soon as you add the salt in, it's fine. We work with people who are migrainers, who have the genetic disposition, which makes them more open to migraines, and their cure is salt. They drink salt water, low carb diet, and it cures it. Just salt. The one guy I'm working with, he said if he feels one coming on, he'll drink salt water and it's gone. So salt's essential to humans, and as you say, they've demonized it like they did with fat, and it's trying to educate people to move away from them, but it's quite well entrenched.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point about migraine sufferers. My wife suffers from migraines, so it's maybe something that she can try in terms of upping her salt intake and maybe
definitely
lowering her carb intake.
If she suffers, tell her to have a glass of water first thing in the morning, last thing at night, with about 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. Can use just table salt or whatever. And if she could lower carb and salt her food through the day, and that will make a difference to her for sure.
Brilliant.
All right, I think. Go on, Barry. Did you want to say something? You jump in.
No, just saying great advice. But we that's what we give here, and it's all very well researched, and it's about the nuances as well. The nuances are something that most people unfortunately don't pick up on, and it's just trying to make that as understandable as possible. And the fact that and that when you do acquire the knowledge, then it really is optimal living is very simple.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the message that we try to give, and everyone who comes on and shares their story backs it up. As Vaz, you have today, you simplified it, and you got great results from it, and that is simple is really the key, and it's not that hard, and that's what we try and encourage people to do, is open your mind and at least be willing to give it a try. At least do it, at least 30 days. I've been thinking for a little while. I was going to speak to you after the show, Barry. I think that at some point I want to do like a 30-day challenge for people and try and get as many people just to try it for 30 days, sort of get a group going and everyone sort of support each other and just try. 30 days can make a big difference. I mean, Vaz,
sure.
Obviously, what did you say? 6 weeks, and you lost all that weight in just 6 weeks, was it?
Yes, 4 stone in about 6 weeks. Because I was hitting all the points. For those, again, just starting out on like a weight loss journey, if you don't want to do intermittent fasting, it's absolutely fine. But the changes I would make, just to get breakfast, and stick with lunch, and just cut out sugar. Those 2 things will make a massive difference right away. I don't worry so much about the exercise. Just try and get the diet in order. And like you said, Ryan, eat as simply as possible. If you're unsure, check the ingredients on the pack. Avoid sugars, seed oils, that kind of thing. Just making those small changes will have a massive effect. Once you start to lose weight, not only will you feel better, you'll have more energy, and the fact that you're not carrying a lot of that extra weight, you'll actually enjoy exercising a lot more. Then you can start to do your exercise, half an hour a day. By that point, you won't be craving breakfast anymore. start pushing lunch later into the day. Before you know it, you've cleaned up your diet, you're exercising, and you're kind of halfway towards trying intermittent fasting. So yeah, that's the best advice I could give based on what I've learned.
Well, we've got the before and after pictures as well of Vivas, which are really, after seeing them, that it's really quite something, the transformation. So we'll need to get them into this episode as well for the viewers.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
definitely. And that's great advice. That's great advice that you've given. And it's just, as you say, it's one step at a time. And it's the first step is, the hardest. And everything's a positive feedback. Once you start making those changes, you get positive feedback, and then you do the next one. It's easier. And like you say, before you know, you're there. Like, 6 weeks to lose 4 stone, that's amazing. Like 30 days is about just over 4 weeks. So if people can just try it for 30 days, they're going to get good results. So that's something for sure we'd like to do. I think we'll pretty much wrap it up there. We've been going a little while with our technical difficulties at the start, but we managed to recover and get it going. So thank you for sticking with us, Baz. And
thanks for your patience.
That's all right. Thank you for sharing your story. I hope you've enjoyed yourself.
I have indeed. Yeah, it's been great. And like I said, I'm a big fan of the podcast. Thanks for having me on. And looking forward to future content as well. So thanks again, Ryan.
That's all right. That's no problem. And Barry, thank you again for being here too.
Yeah. Thanks again for having me, Ryan. Another great story there. And as we said before, stories are very important to illustrate, advice that we're giving out. So yeah, great show.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the real life stories. Like you say, it just gives a bit more to what we're saying and kind of shows it, because anyone can go around saying anything, but the real life stories I think are the most powerful. And we've got plenty more coming up as well, and some great stories from people to share of their health, as well as Vaz's today. So we look forward to seeing everyone again next week. Enjoy your week, eat simply, and let's get optimal together. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into the show. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover on the podcast, or you'd like to appear on it, then please contact us at hwpoduk@gmail.com, on our website, which is healthwealthuk.com, or on any of our social medias, which are at hwpoduk. Please make sure you like, subscribe, share it with all your friends and family, and we will see you next week.